Thursday yet again. I gotta stop that greeting. I don't want to start the greeting with the day of the week. Hey, anyways, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. It is Thursday, and this is ADRAMADA, another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy. We are live, and my audio, I've been playing with audio all afternoon. Nobody's griping yet, so nobody says your lips are moving, but no sound is coming. So I will presume that I can be heard. So good afternoon, good morning. Wow, exciting day. I have been excited about this ever since I came up with the idea to bring Greg Sowell on, and then to see it actually start to come to fruition. Thank you very much. I see. Okay. Scott, I don't know if you're here, but if you're here, now you usually check in, but I have my back channel open if we need anything. Anyways, I am the aforementioned Dave Rush, also known to myself as Commodore ADRAMADA, making you the ADRAMADA Armada, and it's going to be a fun show. We do a whole bunch of this startup stuff. We're going to get our guest in here. He's doing it in about 15 minutes or so. So let's just dive right into all the fun stuff. Today is Thursday, April 18th, as I record this live, if you're watching it on archive. Wow, that's weird. I have noteworthies. I made noteworthies and all my noteworthies. Now I got to come up with it. On this day in history, can I get the years right? 1775. Paul Revere and two other men made their famous midnight ride, who did not yell, "The British are coming." They yelled, "The regulars are coming." And then precisely 8 years later, George Washington announced an end of hostilities with the British and authorized an extra ration of booze to the U.S. troops. But wouldn't that be neat if I actually had actual notes on this? What do we got here? Armada's got a Discord server. If you're not already there, everybody here live that I can recognize is. But if you're watching this on the archive, hey, join us. We got all kinds of really cool and amazing things on there. If you want to contact me, I'm always online, and you can do that via DM or in the chat feed. I have posted the invite for Discord and a couple email addresses. You can get in touch with me if you want to communicate with me on X at DRushTX. If you want to catch me on Mastodon at DRushTX at mastodon.social. And again, I'll put those in the link. And now all of my communication channels are up and running. So let's talk a little bit about where we've been, where we're going. Then we'll say hi to everybody. On last week's show, man, that was a fun show for me. We did a hack, which was how to test an automotive car blade fuse without removing it from the fuse blocks. Man, that's so much fun. I played with that all week. I played with my new fuse block. I've got to figure out a good project for it now. I got 6 fuses and a fuse box. So now I got to do something hefty, right? This week, since I had to do a slide for that, we are going to meet Greg Sowell, Sowell. He works for CIQ, which is the support arm for Rocky Linux. And he works on a ton of products and projects. And his, if you look at his LinkedIn, he's got a pile of titles, and his first title is Automator. And I think I know why, but I'm going to let him explain that. He's a dev. He's a lifelong networker. Folks, I thought I was a networker. I am. The things that you and I think of as networking kind of scratch the surface of the real high performance networking world. There it is. Paul Revere, 1775. Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott. They made their ride from Charlestown to Lexington, warning that the regulars were coming. Yeah, there we go. So Greg's got all kinds of things that he has his fingers in, and he's just an interesting guy. Greg doesn't want to get together in advance and prepare the show and talk about topics or something like that. He says, I am a totally off the cuff kind of guy. Well, I've got a few questions anyways. Some things I know about him to lead him into and things I don't know. And so this is going to be a very free form interview. It's very different than my own interview. So we'll see how it all goes. It's going to be exciting. 1783, exactly 8 years later, is when GW issued the general order announcing end of hostilities with Britain. All right, well, let's see who's here. I get about 10 minutes before he's good to go. So Pelowit in 5.5 hours before showtime, followed 2 hours later by Shia Moonstone. And then half an hour before showtime, Tullowit is back, followed 1 minute later by Shia. Hi, guys. Thank you. Yeah, I can always count on you. You're awesome. How's everyone doing? And my post. That one just came to my head a couple minutes before showtime. Good evening, Miss Patricia. How nice to see you. Okay, we're live. We're talking. We got links. Jason is here. Everybody talking to each other. So good stuff. Well, I got 5 tech stories in the news today. I'm using Zoom instead of OBS because OBS doesn't have this native facility to do networking. And that makes sharing screens a little more challenging than the way I would do with OBS. So bear with me for just a tenth of a second. You go there, and then we go to Zoom, and then we share a screen. Close you, open you, and share. I hope this works. Okay. I ran across this. I know you can't see it yet. Stand by. I ran across this just today. Or maybe it was yesterday, but no more than 24 hours ago. And I just thought this was fascinating. This is a job that came across my feed. And I don't know how well you can see it on the screen. Greg is here. Greg, come on in and join. I don't think. Yeah, there you are. Hi, Greg.
Hey, here I am.
I don't know if I can hear you yet.
Hello? Can you hear me yet?
There you go. I hear sounds. Okay, stand by. A couple quick news stories, and then we will get in with Greg. So this job, Greg, I'm looking at a job. I don't know if you're watching the show live on the YouTube channel, but this job just came across my feed in the last 24 hours. A ransom demand negotiator. So when your company gets nailed by ransomware, you're either going to braille your way through the dark and hopefully pay somebody if that's the path that you choose to take. And hopefully they give you the key to unlock or whatever. And so wouldn't it be neat if there was a profession where you're already good at this stuff? Yeah, I've dealt with ransomers before, and I'll take that job. And I just thought that was fascinating.
That's wild. You know what's crazy to me? It's like it's kind of sad that we've gotten to the point where this is actually a necessity, right? Like you need experts that are apparently going to get paid 90K to 140K a year to do these. I mean, essentially hostage negotiations, right?
Isn't
That's
that
what they're doing,
nuts? Right? And the big targets of this thing are hospitals, and you can't go a week without hearing a hospital that got ransomware.
Yeah,
So
I heard about somebody's like tiny town library getting popped with ransomware, and it's like, so these people they have zero. I mean, they have no money. It's like
right.
essentially what are they going to do here? I've heard that some of these ransomware groups have something of I don't know, a code of ethics or a moral compass, if you'll call it, and they essentially say that like if somebody actually gets compromised, they'll evaluate the business, and if they are under such size or if they're in like the public sector, like like a library or a school or something, like then they actually just hand them the keys over. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That
That
really is.
yeah.
I've heard ransomers have some degree of code of ethic. I hadn't heard that aspect of it, but I'm waiting for ethics as a service for malicious actors. So hey, we got ransomware by Black Hat Inc. Let's go check the reputation of Black Hat Inc. If you pay them ransom, do they ever return? I feel the need for a new website.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild to me. Yeah. That I mean, I would can you imagine being I'm just like I'm trying to put myself in the position of a person who does this so much that it becomes mundane, that it just
Yeah.
becomes the thing you do all the time. It seems like it would be kind of soul draining a bit. I don't think I have the moral fortitude to do that. I don't
Oh,
think
here. And you can't imagine that position. I didn't read much into the position, but I imagine that's a position with some consulting company. It's not like one hospital says, oh, we're going to need a ransomware expert because we get ransomware every 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder how like how common that is in the industry to have like that kind of a position. I assume I because it's one of those things you never really think about. I assume it exists,
Yeah.
right? Now that I think about it, it seems like pretty rational. Are there like training programs for this stuff, or is that kind of like a thing where you have to just get on the job experience, to build a resume, and then start looking for those jobs or something? That seems interesting.
Yeah, I would think that it probably grew from one to the other. Hey, I've done this once before. I brailled my way through it. Now I'm ready to hang out my shingle.
Railed my way through it. I enjoy that.
No,
That's nice. I'm gonna steal that, by the way.
by all means. I've stolen mustaches from you for curly braces.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
I stole that from somebody else. That's not like that's
well,
not an original for
that's
me.
how it goes.
I have to.
Next item in the news. You may already have heard about this one. Gen 2, the Gen 2 Council has implemented a ban on all AI assisted contributions. So, like just about every major distro out there, it's community driven, it's community supported with tons of volunteers writing code and updating it through GitHub and so forth. And Gen 2 apparently has had some sour experiences. And so now I wonder how they're going to enforce that.
Do you think it's actually a sour experience, or do you think they're just trying to cut off any legal troubles before
It
they
may
happen?
very well be something proactive, but
I've
even
been
if,
hearing a lot of companies, a lot of kind of the Fortune 500 are telling their employees, "Hey, absolutely no AI is allowed until there's more legislation, until we understand more about what's gonna just nobody wants that in their software stack, and then somehow they get audited and get pinged for that stuff." So,
exactly
uh,
right. I've heard that as well.
yeah, I can absolutely understand the kind of the fear surrounding all that stuff. Not even to mention the whole, idea of this is taking other people's work and then just regurgitating. Not that we all as humans don't do that anyway, right? But we're doing that inside of our brains as opposed
Right.
to
And we're
just
rewarding it, we're reworking it, and we have real intelligence, not artificial intelligence to back it up.
yeah,
I'm
it's
looking
interesting.
at their rationale. Ethical considerations play a crucial role in this policy. Copyright concerns. So no surprises there.
Yeah, it sounds like a CYA, right? Cover your butt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's one that will, in my humble opinion, never make it. This is a product called Eve from a company called OZIT, capital OZ dash IT, Slovenia based startup. This is a security cam, right? Sure. And they make unobtrusive models too. But what's different about this one is it fires paintballs with extreme accuracy, and tear glass filled paintballs are among its options.
It's interesting. I wonder what sector they're targeting. Like if you're talking about maybe like penitentiaries or something like that, guarding like some specific like no-go zones, maybe you get away with
Yeah.
that. But I just think somebody catches one of these to the eye, it's
Well,
like
that's exactly right.
instant
Or somebody who's
lawsuit.
allergic to tear gas. That's why this is never going to make it. What they have here, special notes. Oh, they're pushing their AI model really hard. We can identify things that shouldn't be targeted, specific individuals, animals, objects, moving objects, vehicles, and things like that. This isn't going anywhere. But You're exactly right. Some niche will look at this and say, you know what, that works for us. We're not concerned with those risks that people who would put this on their front porch.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I just think like in the US, it's probably like a no-go, but there are a ton of countries that are probably far less litigious than we are, and will absolutely enjoy this kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Crowd
Yeah, I wish
control,
them well.
perhaps.
I want to see video of the first actual tear gas shot. It looks prototypical at this point. Slide 4. Back on February 26th, we did a show day or two prior using pre-search. Are you familiar with the search engine pre-search, Greg?
I'm not. I'm not.
Pre-search is a distributed model where you could become a node. So a central site gets the search request. It sends them out to however many nodes to perform the search. Your node does that search using one of about 119, not one of, multiple out of 119 or so search engines, concatenates the results, sends it back to HQ where it's packaged with ads, and they send it out to the requester. It's fast. All of that overhead seems like it would be painful. It's not. I've been using it for a couple of months now, about 3 or 4 months, having switched from whoever I was using. I used them for 2 years and I dumped them. Anyway, so I wanted to do a status report for everybody just to let them know where my node is. I took this shot this morning. When I first opened the node, I just have a one noder. There's people out there who use this to make money because pre-search will pay you in tokens for doing more of this stuff. And they are such a drop in the bucket in the search engine request thing that for all intents and purposes, they may well not exist at this point. Nonetheless, I opened up the node. It took 3 days to get my first hit, another couple of days to get another hit. And eventually I was working up to one a day and so forth. So we've been doing this for about 7 weeks now. And I'm now getting somewhere between 10 and 15 search requests a day. And here's my grand total requests. 653 requests were sent to me. My node was able to respond to 649 of them within their criteria, timely nature or whatever. Of those requests, people who use pre-search, if you log in to their service, you get to build up token points. So the vast majority of those searches are token eligible, and this reliability score runs somewhere between 0 and 100, and I hover somewhere in that 78 to 80. It's kind of interesting if you look over in this pool, Europe, Germany 1, there's a couple dozen servers handling Europe, and Germany is a couple pools in the US, couple in Asia, and every couple hours as the daytime changes or nighttime, I get shifted into another pool. So it's an interesting thing. And
the rewardable requests are I guess the tokens, are those just internet points or do you actually get to use them for something?
they have their own token called pre, which is tradable on all the usual token markets.
Okay.
And if you use, you can buy merch with it from them. Last one. Did you make it at all to Austin this week?
I did
Friday?
not. I
Okay.
did not. Yeah. Only
It
the cool
wasn't.
kids went to that.
Yeah. Talking to the folks who turned up there, there was the expected turnout. How was that? Which was about 250 users, visitors, and I had a nice time chatting with everybody. One of them was the nice folks at Alma, and they were in the news today. I had a nice chat with them about their patch job on XV. And adjacent to that was this news release that came out yesterday or today. So for my audience, Red Hat pulled a stunt a few months back that made it challenging to make a bug for bug clone. It's not impossible. Rocky does it. A number of others do it and or can. And Open Linux Association, ELA, they're out there making sure that people can do bug for bug enterprise Linux. Alma was a bug for bug operation. And when all this nonsense happened, they said, we're going to do things a little different. We're not going to continue to bug for bug. We're going to make a clone that's pretty darn close, so close that you can run it and expect it to work exactly like Red Hat Enterprise Linux does, RHEL. But we're going to add pieces, patch pieces that RHEL may not. And they've done that 4 times now, according to the folks that I spoke to at the expo last week. But the first one that really made big news in public was the patch to the big vulnerability that came out a week ago, the XV compression vulnerability backdoor. Well, that got them such good press. They've already had this in the works, but they announced that they are restoring support that Red Hat pulled out of RHEL for a number of devices. And those devices are the ones listed in the slide that you see here. And they have, let me get their exact words here. Previous supported again, include that stuff. Alma Linux has suggested that depending on user input, additional devices might be re-added in the future. That doesn't seem to be a might. They seem to be going full trajectory there. So what do you think about that, Greg? Their fork, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I can definitely tell you I'm not the biggest expert to be able to comment on this stuff, but I think while they are diverging, they are still keeping, what is it called? ABI, application binary interface. I think compatibility, which means while the enterprise Linux versions kind of will drift one way or the other, your apps really should still work on there.
Yeah, that's their take on it.
I look at it and I see they're backporting support for potentially older hardware. And it makes me, the first thing I always wonder is, what's the motivator? So it's like, do they have like a big giant customer that's potentially like paying them to do that? Or are you kind of spec building, right? And kind of in the open source world, it doesn't seem like people spec build too often, right? Like,
right.
if you build
Well,
it, they
their
will
press
come.
release said that their rationale for all of these was customer demand.
Okay.
So, but that's a good point that it might be a particular customer, a well-to-do one, or a couple.
Hey man, that and I think that's a cool part about open source is like you can come to a company, like us or potentially Alma and say, hey, I've got this giant use case. We want to support this old hardware. We're going to pay you to update the drivers, do all that stuff, maintain it, and you get to release that back out in the community and it helps everybody else, right? Kind of the dream of open source.
There you
So
go.
I think it's pretty cool.
Excuse me. All right. Holy Hannah. All right. So I'm going to check who's here, check in, and then I'm going to get down and we will start what we came here to do. So my old friend and former coworker, Michael Myers, is here. Michael and you share something in common. You are both insane super geniuses, insanely super genius. So pop in and say hi. And good. Great to see you, Michael. This is Greg Sowell. And so let me get down to my notes. I don't have too many questions here. Again, we're going to freeform this and see how it all goes. But there was a couple things that I had in mind that I wanted to bring up. So let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and go from there.
Sure. I guess it just depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. It's like how far back?
When the stream shuts off.
Yeah, two people fell in love at one point, and then
That's
no.
right.
So let's see. I'll give you the 2 minute rendition.
Okay.
So the quick one. So
It's a good start.
I was a kid who grew up like a lot. So I was a latchkey kid. I had a single mom who worked a bunch of jobs, and so I was left to my own devices. I was always a curious kid, so I was always breaking everything, taking everything apart around me, and there was nobody there to stop me, right? So, um, I was also very quiet and shy, and not the kind of person that would enjoy doing these kind of interactions. So I'm a very much a different person now. But I remember getting my first computer when I was 15, and I remember connecting to the internet. And I on the floppy disk that came with the dial-up drivers, there was MIRC, and I got on a chat room and I asked people where they were from and stuff like that, and that was like the coolest thing ever. And there were people from like Texas, which is where I live in, the greatest country in the United States, Texas, and there were some people in various places, and then somebody from Sri Lanka was there, and I started having a conversation with this person. And I don't know, it was just the weirdest sensation. Like the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Like this poor kid who was just so crushingly shy and socially anxious. I was like on the other side of the world, right? And so it was like I knew this was for me. I was like, I'm gonna do stuff with computers, right? And so you fast forward, and I decide to do computer science. I go to a technical school. I do that, or high school 2.0, as I call it. And then I get out and I'm doing systems admin and stuff like that. And then I've always enjoyed networking. Um, there's something about like I like making, right? You know, that taking things apart and putting them together. To me, it always felt like networking is kind of the computer manifestation of that, right? Like where you're physically connecting like things together. And so I started just studying for like Cisco. So, well, I got Network Plus, and then I did CCNA, and then I did CCNP, and I was looking for another job, and I ended up over at a data center group, which I stayed with for quite a while, and kind of grew in the ranks there. But I still remember my first BGP change, right? Border Gateway Protocol, the language that devices on the internet communicate with, right? To like share routes, like how do we get from point A to point B? And I remember making that change, and I was logged into these things called looking glasses, right? And they're just essentially servers in different places that give you a view of what does the internet look like? What do the internet route tables look like right here? And so I hit one in Dallas, I hit one in Seattle, and I hit one over in the UK. And when it hit that one in the UK, I had that same moment, right? The hair on the back of my neck, because it was full circle. So all of a sudden, this shy kid, quiet, never done anything or been anywhere, I made a change, and I literally saw that change ripple across the entire globe. So I
Oh,
I changed the flow of information for the entire world in the matter of 30 seconds. And so I was now like I eventually became the person who like enabled that 15-year-old me to make those connections and stuff like that. So um I think that's probably the quickest way I could tell you how I kind of got into tech and networking and stuff like that. Done a lot of things, taken on a lot of jobs. My motto has always been kind of say yes to everything. So I've done a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of heavy network engineering, kind of on the ISP side, doing some global routing in various places. Done a lot of Cisco stuff, a lot of MikroTik stuff, if you're familiar with that. I love MikroTik Kit. I'm a certified instructor for those guys. I've done years of consulting for that. I try and do less of it now if I possibly can, just help out some folks here and there. But I've got to help out people build out. Um, help people light up a village in the Congo that never had any connectivity, Indonesia,
wow.
Australia, just it's like crazy. Like I'm big in Nigeria apparently. So
Oh,
I've
that's where I found most of your hits.
yeah, there's a lot of action. Well, I started when I started learning this stuff myself because it was making the change from Cisco stuff. There wasn't like because they call Cisco like the interface, they call it industry standard CLI. Like literally, if somebody else has a CLI that's similar to Cisco, they say industry standard CLI. It means it's like it's Cisco like, right? Because it is become the standard.
Right.
And so MikroTik absolutely bucks that standard, and it is very different. And so that translation from one to the other was kind of jarring for me. And so I was like, well, maybe other people are having problems. So I started putting stuff out just on my blog to help people out. And so a lot of people started
Funny you
grabbing that
should mention
content.
that. So is that going to be gregsowell.com?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I've got that
It's
link here ready to go.
Man, that thing has been there for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, I
So
was
it's
looking at it
20 years of
a couple of
nonsense.
times this week.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff. Well, it's funny. I through that and through the YouTube, I ended up doing like a Cisco CCNA thing. Just, just to like just put it out there, see if it would help anybody. And this guy found me from it was lynda.com at the time. And he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in making some courses?" And that terrified me, so I said yes, knowing that it wouldn't happen. Well, it eventually happened, and here I am, X number of years later, and I've created 17 courses for them for all
Wow,
kinds of
nice.
networking stuff. So yeah, just saying yes, even though you're absolutely terrified, leads you to some amazing things. Yeah, so just doing all that stuff, and then
And
at
for our
some point,
watchers, let me interrupt briefly.
yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
I have attended one of Greg's classes. I attended an Ascender class from him, and I went from almost zero to, hey, I can function in this in the span of 8 hours. So you're an awesome and amazing instructor, and a heck of a courseware developer. So thank you so
I like
much
to
for
say
that.
I stand on the shoulders of giants. So many people have been kind enough to pour into me, and so I'm genuinely just a cocktail of all the people that have been kind enough to share things with me and kind of build into me over time. And so I always try and honor that gift, like wherever it came from. And it's as I age, it's harder for me to remember where the things came from. But also, I've noticed that in some conversations, I have to stop and like cite my sources so frequently, like every 2 sentences, like I got to stop doing that. Like at some point, that stuff just becomes part of you, right? But
Right.
yeah, so I love to teach. I love enablement. I love talking. So on the fixed base wireless stuff, I did a podcast for about 10 years called The Brothers Wisp. It was just mostly talking about fixed base wireless and networking and stuff like that. And I eventually, man, I've kind of moved out of that world. So I turned over the reins to some other folks and um, what else? So I eventually quit doing the networking and went and did automation over at Red Hat for a few years. And then a
So
whole
what does
bunch of
that mean for
what does
everybody
that mean?
watching?
All right, so I went to be a specialist solutions architect over at Red Hat and focus on automation. So uh, well, I mean, just really the most popular automation tool out there is Ansible, right? And so a lot of people think, oh, automation, you're just doing like infrastructure automation. The cool thing about Ansible is it's an open source tool. Anybody can go and grab it, and you can literally automate against anything in your infrastructure. So you could do your Linux servers, your Windows servers. You can do all of your cloud providers, right? It doesn't Azure, AWS, GCP, the Alibaba network stuff, like literally anything that's out there in existence. All of your network infrastructure. Like I had like network engineer for 17 years, and I love automating network stuff. So routers, switches, firewalls. You see these lights on these shelves behind me. Literally, they have an API, so I can hit them and automate them. So
So we're
it's
talking about
interesting
what my group is going to know as IaaS, infrastructure as a service.
for sure. Yeah,
So
or infrastructure is code or configuration is
infrastructure as
code.
code. That's what I meant.
Like
Yep.
there are so many things that mean the same thing, and like everybody will market it different, but essentially it all comes down to the same, right? You can do so many interesting things with it. It's it's interesting because automation, talking about automation with people, I think it automation is the old AI, right? Like everybody right now is currently talking about AI and or afraid of AI. And before everybody was talking about automation and or afraid of automation, right? Like it's automation is going to take our jobs. And honestly, I never went into any customer and saw them downsize due to automation. That's just not what happens, right? So you've got a team of people, trust, they're doing good work. You just want to make them more efficient, right? You want to give them more tools, give them more free time, um, make things repeatable, make things easier, make their life happier, make your life happier, reduce downtime, all the good things. And so really, I've never seen headcount go down. I'm sure it's happened, but that's not really its main intention because normally you need all those people to keep the lights on.
Right.
And so now they just have a little bit more time instead of constantly putting out fires. I think I think everybody in IT universally understands the cyclical nature of burnout. I think you come to know it. I'm not going to say love it, but you come to understand it. You understand your breaking points, how far you can get to the line before you're burnt out, and then you go past that line and burn out, and then you recover, and it's just this wave, right, where you go up and down. And for me, what I've noticed is automation helps level out that sine wave, right? It starts becoming more like a square wave, I guess. It's just kind of it's more of a straight line. So you're not just trying to put out fires constantly. You have things that are occupying most of those repeated tasks that are boring that you skip steps on, and then subsequently cause yourself problems later on. Helps reduce that technical debt and stuff like that. Although it can run into a chicken or egg problem. I'm sure you've talked to people about this because I've heard it so many times. It's like we'd love to automate, but we don't have time to learn how to automate.
Yeah.
You know?
But the learning curve is not that bad. Obviously, it's practically innate with you, but in that the one day that I spent with you, I was functional, and then from there, like any other task, there's this thing I need to do. I know that it can be done. I don't know how to do it, but those two pieces leapfrog me to the next thing. I spend a couple hours, couple minutes learning. Oh, okay, it's here's the keyword that I need. Here's the whatever, and now you add that to your arsenal, and pretty soon you're pretty good at it all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Well, it's um when I came over to CIQ, right? Was that Red Hat, came over to CIQ. A lot of my focus, well, I mean, pretty much, well, I can't say all of it. My primary focus right now is automation and enablement and really helping people learn. And honestly, I love that. Like helping people kind of pick it up and move with it quickly. And that's what we do with a lot of our workshops, right? So 0 to 60, get you off the ground. Because I don't know about you, I don't know how you learn, but a lot of times the best way I learn is just get hands-on, just get dirty, start turning those wrenches. Things are going to break. It's going to be kind of a grind. If you have somebody there to help guide you through it or answer a question, oh my God, like so much in my early career, I kind of regret, but I don't because I got where I needed to be, but I digress. I refused to ask for help. Like I couldn't ask for help. I had to be the one that knew all the answers. I needed everybody to come to me. Right. This may be a common story for some people, but I eventually learned that, and I made my way to the top. I got to the top. I was VP of technology for this data center group. And when I got there, it was really lonely at the top of that mountain. And it was extremely stressful, especially when you just don't have a whole lot of people that you've brought with you, you know? It's not like I did it over their corpses. I didn't kill them on my way up. I didn't bring them with me, And so, I had to build this network of people and I had to learn to start trusting others. And, so it's nice when you have an environment where you have somebody who's there. All they want to do is help you. You run into a problem. You ask me that question. We can resolve that in 45 seconds when it might take you 2 hours of banging your head against it.
Sure.
Will you remember that lesson after 2 hours? You probably will, but also you just saved yourself a ton of time. So
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of FOSS is it's open. You've got plenty of participants. It attracts people like yourself who want to learn these things, who want to do these things and do it like you do. They just get hands on and they learn and they become internalized experts and then say, you know what, I can share this. I can teach this.
yeah,
I
for
can do
and
17 courses.
and I think some people think about open source. They really only think, well, I'm not a programmer. I don't have anything to contribute. And I will be the first person to tell you are wrong. If you understand something and you can teach it to somebody else, that is a valuable skill. Right? If you can document, if you can make use cases, if you can create playbooks, right, like the automation scripts that Ansible consumes, and you can share those in a public Git repository and maybe comment it so that other people can understand, you're helping. You're contributing to open source. You may not think of it in those terms, but you absolutely are. And people who think they don't have anything to contribute, I heard somebody else talking. I think it's like he's a Laravel developer, and he was saying that you may not feel like you have anything to contribute, right? Like that everybody knows the same things you do. That that obviously, if I try to explain something, everybody else already understands this, but you forget that there's all these people. If you can turn and look behind you, there's all these people that started where you started, right? And they're not where you are, and so all this information you could share would help them so tremendously. So absolutely. The way you explain something is going to click in somebody's head and you're going to help them. So you are a contributor. You just may not believe it or realize it. So definitely
Yep.
if you feel inclined, I'm not trying to put pressure on anybody, but if you so feel inclined, good things happen to you when you start sharing.
Yep. And Rocky's not the only game in town. We certainly, Greg and I love Rocky, and Greg is all
Yeah,
over the
right.
place. But
Yeah.
I have dabbled as a helper in some areas. Last night, finally putting all this together, I said, you know what? I'm not really doing anything for Rocky other than cheerleading. So I joined the Alt Arch group. I'm not a coder, but I am a fairly decent writer and documenter. And so that's where I'm going with that. See, but who wants that kind of help? And I really committed uh, just the world worst faux pas about 2 years ago when I started to try to be helpful over there, but I knew nothing. And I thought, well, I'm going to be able to reach out and get people and they're going to help me. They're going to drive me. They're going to take over. No. And I got frustrated and walked away, but
It
after
happens.
some meetings and talking with a lot of people, hey, you gotta step up a little bit. You've got to put the effort into learning some of this and share with us, and we will share with you, and it becomes a nice group effort. Love that stuff.
Yeah. And you can, yeah, like contribute, like you said, directly into the groups, or just start making content that helps people. Like I'm a huge proponent of that. Like if you can put good out into the world, it's a seed that's going to grow.
Yeah.
And you may not. That's the interesting thing I've found is like a lot of people are afraid to put things out on the internet. You obviously aren't, right? You jumped out there, um, because they're afraid there's going to be negativity. There's going to be backlash. Like that imposter syndrome kicks in. Everybody's going to realize I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to yell at me. Um, but at the end of the day, nobody's coming at your house and kicking your dog. You
That's
know what I mean?
right.
And honestly, most of what happens on the internet is silence. You mostly don't hear anything. So every now and then you'll get something back, and it's generally positive for the most part. You just have to be okay with there being a whole lot of silence for the
Yeah.
most, like in my experience. I don't know about you, what do you think? Like, do you see? Because you'll see, like I have some YouTube videos that are close to like 1 million views, and you maybe have on something that big, maybe 15 comments or something like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
So
amazing, isn't it?
yeah,
My big one is 250,000 views, just a little shy of that now. And there's, 100 comments or less on the whole thing. So good. Hopefully we've communicated what we want. I do love it every now and again when somebody posts a comment, though. It might even be a low view. Says, man, I have been looking for this for years. This was exactly the thing I was looking for. Thank you. And that's just so good for your heart.
yeah. I mean, it's those little. You're like a man dying in the desert. It's those little sips of water that help you just make it just a little
That's
bit further down
right.
the road. Because I something I've also again, like people just feed into me. Nothing is original in my brain, but people have said, artists create art for other people to enjoy it. And if you're creating stuff, you're putting it on the internet for other people to utilize. Even if it's technical material, you're technically putting it out there for other people to enjoy. So like when you
Sure.
get that positive feedback, so whenever I watch a video that actually helps me, I always make sure to hit like hit the thumbs up, hit the like, and
Absolutely.
especially if it's like a technical thing and it helped me, I try and drop a comment, right? Because it feeds the algorithm, it helps. And what did that take? 10 seconds from me? It was like
Right.
nothing, so it helps out.
Couple thoughts here that people are sharing. No questions yet, but and guys, if you have questions for him, Greg is so well versed in so many areas, coder and automator, and a couple of things I'm going to ask him about here in just a second. But
Oh
people
gosh.
are definitely sharing and enjoying what you do and they do. Patricia Grace, one of our regulars here, loves your term "cocktail of people," which I do too. What do we got here? Shia Moonstone feels the same way about that silence and about got to be the only one who knows it all, or not the only one, but it has to learn it all and be a self expert.
Mm.
Shia also hates asking, has hated. I don't think he does anymore. Asking for help. As we get older, we all do that, right? And Jason says, I still feel like I don't know enough. Let me ask you about two things here, then I'm going to change topics. So if you look up Greg's name online, you're going to find a number of things that he has his fingers in. He mentioned his blog, gregsowell.com, which I put the link for in here. Two others that kind of came to the surface real quickly. Strayanet.
Yeah. That's
What is
that's me
that?
as well. So I have been in networking for a really long time, and so I have a small company that does internet for apartment complexes. So MDUs out there, your multi-dweller units is what we call them, MDUs. And so I will bring infrastructure in there, build out all of it, like soup to nuts. So I really take care of all of it. The cool part is I use a lot of automation. So
What a
uh,
shock.
it kind of takes care of itself. So I own the infrastructure all the way through, which I absolutely love. And I love building them out with MikroTik too. So I can do it budget friendly, but really I love the power of MikroTik infrastructure. So I've got generally I'll have my border router that breaks into a core switch, right? It's going to be all kind of fiber optic out to my edge switches. and then I'll do PoE into the actual living module itself. So I put an access point with wired ports in every single living module. So everybody's got like a wired port and a wireless connection. The cool part is, since I'm powering all of it with PoE, I can watch it with my monitoring system, and if anything seems hinky, I can have automation just go in there and try and do remediation.
That's
So
awesome.
I can have it like take care of itself. So I essentially never get any support calls, and
And
my
you're in a
satisfaction.
college town. Does that make a difference for a customer base, or is it a little more residential?
That's mostly what I target is
Okay.
college MDUs. That's what I've been doing forever.
Okay.
But it's so funny because internet used to be like an amenity people would often charge for, but now it's expected, like electricity or water or garbage
Well,
collection. It's like internet is essentially a utility that is like a must have. And it's so funny because I've talked to managers before, like somebody's water can be off for 2 days, they don't call in. Their internet goes down for 30 minutes. They're hammering maintenance. It is like it's crazy. Like people can put up with a lot of stuff, but like not being able to watch the new Fallout series is like that's not one of them that they can live without. So it really, because I mean, think about it. Like it has become such a important part of our lives. Not only is it entertainment, right? Like it's my interaction. Some people, like think about during COVID, we couldn't see other humans. So the vast majority of my interaction came through this thing right here, this box. And
yeah,
honestly, it was one of the things that I think literally helped me survive. Genuinely, like being able to interact with other people
we are
through
pleased
through
that
the
you
internet.
did.
Yeah, and then you move from that to work, right? Like a lot of people, I mean, I'm 100% remote worker, so without internet, like I can't do my job. So
Yeah,
it's become such an essential part of all of our lives. And the fun part is, too, for some of these people, it's a complete mystery on how any of it works.
that's right. You have one other site that I'm curious about. I thought this was a fascinating one. I saw the most recent one was either end of February, mid March. YMIpod.com. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. That one, we're between seasons right now, but that one's absolutely a passion for me. It is entirely non-technical, so I don't know how interested people would be here, but I am infinitely fascinated by humans and what motivates them. And um, I kind of later in life learned that I'm somewhere on the spectrum, and not everybody thinks like a robot and is entirely logical. And so I um I started, finding out just like I was entirely fascinated by humans. Like at an early age, like I told you, I was very frightened by them, and now I'm fascinated by them. And it gave me this safe space to actually start like ask a question, listen to somebody's story, and then try and feel a thing. And but you can't just walk around the world doing that. It's like insane. Because like yeah, it's so funny that people have like about I've learned that people have feelings all the time about things. And I'm like, that's bizarre to me. Like I don't, it's like, how does that work? And so it gave me this place to start learning to do that. And I get to collect these interesting stories from people completely different from me and fascinating. And I
So
have
you're interviewing people just to find out what makes them tick, what they
yeah,
do.
I
That's
find people who do interesting stuff and I ask them one question, that's it. And I say, "Who are you?" And then I just take notes on what they say and we just riff from there. And I just ask them questions and it just free flows. And a lot of
very cool.
times I try and know as little about the person as I possibly can just to be surprised and not have it guide me. But I've got to meet some amazing people, learn some amazing lessons, and it has grown me in ways that I could have never imagined.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to drag you back to the Rocky CIQ thing real quick, and then we'll
Yeah.
start getting ready to wind down. So you're on the CIQ side of things. Rocky Linux develops the operating system, releases it, patches it, does all those things. CIQ is the support arm. You help customers use Rocky and other products. Do I have that substantially correct?
All right. Let's see.
Ooh,
I don't know that I have it 100% correct, but you have the RESF, the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation. They're the ones who actually create Rocky Linux, right? So the ones who do all of that good work. And you are correct. We are the ones that do support. So on the back end, if you are looking for uh You're looking for somebody to come in and assist you with anything with your infrastructure if you need like support on that. Because I know there's some people that have like compliance restrictions and things like legally they have to have support on all of their products or whatever. And so we're absolutely here to fill those roles. If you are a big shop, if you're a small shop, we're happy to do that. If you need custom kernel patching, we do that stuff as well. So inside we have a product called Mountain that's basically a repository at this point for custom stuff. So if you want like custom kernels, you're looking for that FIP stuff, you're looking for long-term support kind of things where you want to lock it to a version, you can holler at us and we can give you access to all that stuff.
Right. So you had a big FIPS announcement in the last few days, yeah?
I think there's so
You
much stuff
did.
that
Okay.
goes through the PR stuff. I never know when anything actually hits.
Fair
So
enough.
yeah, so I never know what I'm supposed to talk about or what because
Okay, that's all right.
I
I won't
don't
make you.
always look. But yeah,
There,
yeah, we have some FIP stuff that's definitely
yeah,
landing.
it was a good announcement. Lots of information out there. Uh, it, I've been panicking about Rocky and FIPS for 2 years because I've watched all the fallout companies from the Red Hat maneuver. Uh, and FIPS, of course, is so important to the primary customer base of Red Hat, and therefore the bug for bug recreators. And
Yeah.
what Rocky did or didn't do with FIPS was always very quiet. Alma's out there singing its praises, and we're ready to go. And same with OpenSUSE and. So finally,
Yeah.
Greg got behind this one, the other Greg,
Yeah.
and
The real Greg, that's what I like to say. Yeah.
so it's really good. It's
Yeah.
exciting news.
Well,
You've already
FIPS,
Go
I
ahead.
know for us has been in the works for ages.
Yeah.
It is not a marathon. It is like a double marathon. It's like an Ironman because it takes so much time, energy, and believe it or not, a ton of money to get FIPS certified. And so there's all this nomenclature associated with it. There's
Yeah.
FIPS compatibility, FIPS certified. There's a subtle difference in between there, whether something's compatible or certified. And so
Right.
um, working on all of that stuff, absolutely. But everybody is, right? And so
Hey,
it
30
goes in the
seconds for
hopper.
everybody. What is FIPS?
Yeah, FIPS is like just yeah, like a 30-second rendition is there are a handful of security related packages. I think there's only like 8. I can't remember right off the top of my head. That the federal government here in the United States says, hey, we want these to meet these exact standards, right? We want them to be exactly like this. And so what you do is you get FIPS certified for those exact packages. They'll give it, the rubber stamp of approval. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
There's these hoops that you have to jump through, and then they light them on fire, and then then you have to do some stuff underwater. I don't know, it's really complicated. But then they'll bless those packages, and then you can say you have a FIPS kernel. But it's like that handful of packages is all it really pertains to. Now you can say you're also FIPS compliant or compatible. I've heard people say it both ways, right? So certified means they are exactly the way the government said. FIPS compliant or compatible means I meet those requirements, but I've actually updated the packages to maybe be even more secure, right? So you can't say it's certified because it doesn't meet the precise government standards they set out, but compatible means I've actually elevated beyond, what is required there. So for like your government folks, they definitely want the FIPS stuff because I assume they get audited like crazy and they don't want anybody asking them questions. So here,
Exactly.
we're FIPS, we're good. We meet the government requirement standards.
Yeah.
Please
And
leave me
that's so
alone.
critical for an enterprise Linux organization because otherwise there are government entities who will cast out and say, okay, who's nope, Rocky's not FIPS, we can't touch them. So it opens up a great deal of market space for you.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. Um, we talked a while back and you said something fascinating to me, and I'll make this kind of the last question. Uh, I asked which projects and products you were working on, and you said all of them but 2. And so I've got a list of many of the projects here and products: Aptainer, Ascender, Mountain, which you just talked about, Werewolf, Fuzzball, FIPS. What are the 2?
I spend the vast majority of my time on the automation stuff. So it's gonna be like Ascender, the Ledger stuff. And then just Rocky Linux. The stuff I don't dabble as much in is the high performance compute side. So that's gonna be like
Okay.
Werewolf or Aptainer or Fuzzball. We definitely have some amazingly smart guys. We have a fellow named Forrest. He's got this giant amount of amazing hair. That guy,
And
really
all
sweet.
red.
Yeah, yeah, he's awesome. And he lives out of a van, which is even cooler. Like he's like a modern day vagabond. He just kind of floats from place to place in his van. But he's also insanely brilliant on the high performance compute stuff. But yeah,
Absolutely. I have a,
I come from kind of an ISP world and enterprise world, and so I focus mainly on kind of that realm. So most of I mean, every enterprise out there needs an enterprise Linux, and then legitimately every enterprise needs automation. So I focus most of my time and energy into those.
very good. Greg, it was a pleasure having you here. I'm going
Yeah.
to do this shutdown little shindig we do here. I didn't see any questions that popped up. Yeah, I knew somebody was going to say that. Patricia Grace added the follow-up question. Is it down by the river?
Every now and then he's down by the river. I can't say he always is. Sometimes he's by the mountain. Sometimes he's by the Jack in the Box or the Walmart. But I think yeah, he's out in nature most of the time, I think.
I have learned so much from him and you and Dave. Guys, if you don't know this, every Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Pacific, I think, the folks at CIQ do a 1 hour webinar. Sometimes they have Greg on. He's talking about a project or a process. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back on my word. You did I don't know what to call it, a podcast, a video the other day. Find my mistakes. Or did you do that yet?
Yeah, like I did one that was on the XC vulnerability, like how would somebody write a playbook to find that in their environment? So I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to record myself writing a playbook and screwing up and like going through it. Well, it was such a simple playbook. I didn't really run into too many errors. I was like, yeah, let's force it. Let's go ahead and force it. And so I made a challenge playbook. So it's out there for anybody to grab. It's full of mistakes. You should be able to throw it against any kind of enterprise Linux host just to try your hand at troubleshooting. Like how good are your troubleshooting chops? And I try and walk through and like this is essentially my mouth is running the whole time. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I kind of approach it and go through there. And you know what I've found is that I learn best from watching people run into problems and troubleshoot them. So I thought, I don't know, maybe there's some other people out there that like, and also I don't like the videos where everything is perfect. Everything just goes perfectly because that's not real life. In IT, this is how IT works for me. It fails, it fails, it fails until it stops failing. Then I move on to something else. And then that thing fails and fails and fails until it's when everything just looks smooth and perfect, I know they're hiding something behind there. And so to me, the real value is seeing how you run into problems, how you pivot, and what your troubleshooting process is.
It's incredible how you think that you can achieve some degree of stability and wipe your brow and say, wow, now I can go on and do something else. And then something completely explanationless, at least on its surface, goes bad. Wait a minute, why does this suddenly not work? And as you say, then okay, it's back into troubleshooting mode. I had a
Yeah.
couple of those in the last week.
Yeah, so I there's an engineer that works with us named Jimmy Connor, and I've had the pleasure of working with that cat for a while. He is brilliant, and occasionally when I'm working on something, if you get the chance to with somebody who's truly talented and you watch them run into a problem and solve it, I learn stuff every time I work with that guy. So when we do hackathons, which honestly is my favorite part of the job, where we actually go to a customer site and we say, all right, we're going to take all your teams, we're going to break them up into little teams, give us real use cases you want to automate in your environment, and we go at it. So it's like a 3 day hackathon where they're broken up, they're doing all these things, and so I get to learn a bunch like in situ, right? Like we run into problems, I'm not going to have every answer, so I'm going to get to help figure these things out. But also, when I have talented folks like Jimmy, so like Jimmy and I are tag teaming, I'll learn all kinds of crazy stuff that I've never even heard of that exists inside of Ansible, you know, let alone inside Ascender, like our enterprise product that like controls it all. But so I'll get to do all that stuff. The fun part about, yeah, the hackathon is that you really do get to get in there, solve real problems, help people out. And then at the end of the night, you go, you eat dinner somewhere, you have a good time, you laugh, you rinse and repeat to do the next day. It's so fun.
Outstanding.
Such a
All right,
blast.
hang on for just a couple seconds after we close the show. I'm going to close this down right now. Hey guys, thanks. Pass the word about Greg's appearance here. He was amazing. Man, you were amazing, Greg. Thank you. Hope to
I
do this
appreciate you,
maybe
David. Thank
a
you for
couple
having
times a
me.
year. And whenever you've got something you want to talk about or share, we have very small live viewership, but after a year of revisits, there's about 15,000 or so views on any given video. So it's a lot of fun and you can get the word out that way, though it may take a while.
No, it's cool. I love to talk. I don't know if you could tell, but I love the sound of my own voice. So absolutely, I'm here.
We share a history here. I started out as the shy, lonely kid with the single mom, where simpatico there, and some teacher in high school dragged me in to be in her play,
Oh, you're a
and then
theater
my world
kid.
changed.
I could smell it on you when we met, Dave.
Hey, well,
All right,
everybody, I wish
somebody.
you all a great rest of the week. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy, and if at all possible, call or visit your parents. And never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, I bid you all good night. I'll see you on ADRAMADA next Thursday, the other platforms that I'm on. And until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything.